Okay. All right. So what's negative 3 plus 7? Good. 4. Negative 4 minus 11? Yeah, negative 15. 5 minus negative 2? Good. 7. Guys, if you know it, shout it out. Otherwise, I'm going to have to count you one by one. Yeah. Oh, you just say it out loud. If you know it. Yep. 12 divided by negative 6? More people, come on. Immediately. Everyone say it. Negative 2. Good. Negative 7 times negative 8? 56. And then negative 40 divided by negative 8. 5. Good. Do you have any questions on that at all? Any of those? Okay. So now I'm writing a fraction for each of these. So what fraction did you guys write for this? Like how many is shaded out of how many? Yeah. 1/8. Good. Okay, so 1 shaded out of 8 total pieces. There are a couple different ones that you could have written for the second one. Give me one of them. Anyway, 2/8. Yep. Or what else could you do? 1/4. Good. So it just kind of depends on your perspective, like how you see it, okay? So then when you go to combine these together, you know you had one piece and then 2 pieces. So we'll color the 1 plus the 2. So what's that going to be? 3/8. Good. Yep. All right, any questions? All right, so your objective is going to be very, very, very similar to Friday's objective. So you're going to have students will be able to find sums. What sum again? Addition, good. Differences. Which one's that? Subtraction, good. About products. And then quotients. Perfect. So basically, we are adding, subtracting, multiplying, and dividing fractions. Just kind of reviewing the rules for that. All right. So we are going to start with addition and subtraction. So throughout this, we're going to kind of naturally review all the other stuff that comes along with fractions, like reducing and all that. Something for you guys to know is that we do not use mixed numbers anymore. Okay, so I would rather you leave it as like 9/7 reduced than give me like 1 and 2/7. We don't do the 1 and 2/7 anymore. We can't really use those numbers for anything, so we just don't do them. Okay, we just keep it improper. So let's go to adding and subtracting. So when you're adding and subtracting fractions, those are the ones where you do have to get a common denominator, okay? We're going to try to get the lowest common denominator because the lower the value of the denominator, the less reducing you have to end up doing, which is nice. But you could technically use any denominator that they have in common that would work, okay? Let's see. I'm trying to pick one of these out for a million years. Okay. So we're just going to practice at the beginning, just getting a common denominator, and then we're going to kind of apply it. So for here, for the example, it says 1/3 and 1/4. If those were your 2 fractions, you could write those both as being out of 12 because 3 and 4 both go into 12. Okay. So the way you would do that is you are going to figure out what needs to be multiplied to the bottom to make it that. Okay, and then do the same thing to the top. So what do I have to multiply 3 by to make 12? So you have to do 3 times 4 is 12. So you have to also do the same thing on the top. Because then, the reason why you're allowed to do this if you do it to the top and bottom is because I'm technically now multiplying by 4/4. What's 4/4? 1. So it is multiplying by 1, so I'm not really doing anything. Okay? So that's why you're allowed to do it, because it's kind of like a trick. So what's 1 times 4? 4. Yep. We're not going to reduce that just because the directions are wanting you to like get the common denominator. If you reduce it, you just undo everything you just did. Okay, so reducing, just do for answers, like when you're actually adding and subtracting. All right, so 1/4, what do I multiply the 4 by to get 12? No, so it's 3, and 1 times 3, is 3. Okay? Good there? Okay, so for the next example, write an equivalent fraction with the given denominator. An equivalent fraction, what's that remind you of? Like, what does that mean? Equivalent fraction. Yep, equal to. Okay, so you're trying to find a fraction that has the same value. So we have 1/6, and we're trying to make the new denominator to be out of 24. So what do we multiply the 6 by? 4, yep. So 1 times 4 is 4. And we're going to leave it like that because we don't want to reduce and undo what we just did. Okay? It's all about the directions, about how you'll know what to do. So the directions, it tells you to find an equivalent fraction. So you're not adding, you're not subtracting it, none of that. All right, so now we have 2/5. We want that to be out of 25. So what do I multiply the 5 by? So times 5. So on the top, same thing. 2 times 5 is 10. We're going to leave it because we don't want to mess with the denominator. We wanted it out of 25. Good? Okay, go ahead and do the next ones. So these last bottom 2. Okay, we good? Yeah? Cool. All right, so we have 2/3. We want to write it out of 9. So what do you guys multiply the 3 by? Yep, so times 3. 2 times 3 is 6. So you should have 6 over 9. And 3 over 6, and we want it to be out of 24. So what do you multiply 6 by?
4.
4, yeah. And then 3 times 4 gives us 12. So see how like 3/6 is like a half, right? And 12 over 24 is like a half. That's what makes them equivalent fractions. So they still have the same like ratio to each other, the same value, but they're just written differently. Okay? All right, are we going to move on to actually adding and subtracting? Yeah? Cool. All right. All right. All right, so first let's decide what our common denominator is going to be. Then we can kind of switch in both. So what would a common denominator be for 6 and 4? 12, yeah. And keep in mind, some of you, I've noticed, have always been taught to find the lowest number that both of them go into. Some of you were taught to just always multiply the two bottoms together to get the common denominator. Either way works, okay? Just keep in mind, if you do the way where you're multiplying them together every time, you might have to reduce a ton at the end. It's like way more than everybody else, okay? All right, so we want them out of 12. All right, so what do we multiply the 6 by? Yeah, so times 2. So 5 times 2 is going to give us 10. And then so it's a 4 on the bottom, so what do I have to multiply the 4 by to make 12? Yeah, times 3. And then 3 times 3 is going to give me that 9. So now they have the same denominator, you can add them together. Then after you do that is when you would like reduce all that. And keep the same denominator the whole time. Okay? So what's negative 10 plus 9? Go, what kind of one? Yeah, because the bigger number was negative. All right, for this next one, I have a 3 and a 5. What would be a good common denominator? 15, yep. All right, so here, to get to 15, what do you multiply 3 by? and 5. So it's going to be a negative 5 on top. All right, what about the 5 by? So 3 times 2 is going to be that 6. All right, so we have two of the same sign. We have a negative 5 and a negative 6. So what do those combine together to make? So think about like going on a number line. So you're going negative 5 and then negative 6 more. I guess it's going to be negative something. So you want negative and then more negative. Yep, good. So it's going to be negative 11.
Why would you add it?
Just because they're both going the same direction. Yeah, so for addition and subtraction, it's all about like direction on a number line, same sign or different signs. Multiplication and division is where it's just like no one really knows why the signs are that way. Yeah. All right, and then do you guys remember what you do with a whole number? Yep, you put a 1 underneath it. Like that, so it's 26 over 1. Yeah, so common denominator is going to be 3. And the second one's already done for you. So what do I multiply the 1 by? So what do I multiply the 1 by to make 3, guys? 3. Yep, times 3. And 6 times 3? Yeah. Okay, so those are both positive, right? Same sides, just same direction. So that's why you'll add them. Both in the positive direction. So what would that make? 18 thirds plus 2 thirds. 20 thirds. Can you divide 20 and 3 by the same number there? Nope. So we're just going to leave it like that. So reduce it as far as like the numbers go if you can divide both by the same thing. But I don't want you to convert it over to like the, whatever that would be, 20 and something or other odd. Yeah. Okay. All right, go ahead and do that next section. Now, got it? No, check it in a minute. right, guys, let's go over this. So for A, what common denominator did you guys use? 14, good. So you should have multiplied this one by 2 to get negative 4 over 14 plus that by 7. And then that'll give you an overall answer of 3 over 14. Any questions? We're good? Okay. All right, this one, what did you guys use for this? You can use 18. Is there anything smaller? 12 is these 6 is even smaller. Yeah, I don't use 6. All right. So for this one, we're going to have to do times 2. So you get negative 4 over 6 minus 1 over 6 equals what? What's that going to be, guys? Negative 5 over 6, yeah. All right, and then on this last one, number, put it under 1, or over 1, I guess. And then what's the common denominator you guys used? Yep, 5. So that's going to say a 4/5. That one. Minus. Oh, this over 1 is what's killing me. Okay, there we go. Oh, yeah, so 15 over 5. Okay. All right. So what's 4 minus 15? 11, yep. And then so if you could reduce those, if you could divide those both by the same thing, you would. But I don't want you to do mixed numbers. Just keep it improper, but just still reduce down, which we'll practice reducing in a minute. Okay? Any questions there at all? Just remember, common denominator is always for addition and subtraction. And that's like that half of it. Okay? Like just separate them out. All right, so the next we're going to look at is multiplication and division. So for those, you do not need a common denominator. So when you are doing multiplication, you are just going straight across horizontally, okay? And then division, you're going to basically do the same thing, except for you're going to do the reciprocal. I'm going to highlight that word because you guys need to know that word on here. So when you're dividing, you do the reciprocal, which is the flipped version of the second fraction, and then it just becomes like a multiplication problem, basically, okay? So let me... All right, so let's practice multiplying these two. So you literally just go straight across, okay? So you do, actually, something I want to pause and look at over up top really quick, because it's something that always comes up, and I think it's important for you guys to know. You can write this down, don't write this down, it's up to you. Okay, so when you have a fraction, let's say you have a negative overall fraction. Let's say like X, I'm just going to use X over Y for everything. For this, okay? So if I have a negative overall fraction, so then pause that in your brain and come back to that. So now if I have a fraction like this, that's negative on the top and negative on the bottom. What's a negative over a negative? A negative divided by a negative is positive, correct? Does everyone agree? Okay, so that would mean that this actually is the same thing as a positive fraction. So, when you see a negative fraction, does that mean that the negative applies to both the top and the bottom? No. So it can only apply to both, or either one of them, okay? So you can either choose the top or the bottom for the negative. The other one has to be positive. So for you to get that, you would have to do either negative x over y. That's the same exact thing as x over negative y. It doesn't matter where the negative is, top or bottom. I tend to always do the top. I don't think I've ever put a negative on the bottom before, even though it's possible. So I would just honestly, if I were you, see a negative fraction as that means the top is negative. The bottom's always positive. Okay? All right. So let's go back down in a second. I'll let you guys write this down for those of you who wanted to. All right. So that's going to kind of come into play when we're multiplying, because when you're looking and multiplying straight across, you don't know when to apply the negative if you think they're both negative or whatever. You have to pick one, okay? So I'm going to pick the top. So I'm going to see this as a -3. So what's -3 times 1?
3.
-3, yep. And 4 times 2?
8.
8, yep. And then decide if you can reduce that. Is 3 and 8 both divisible by the same thing? Nope, and that's, yeah. So that's going to be your answer. All right, for B we have division, so we have to do the reciprocal of the second fraction. Remember that word reciprocal, it's not the only time it's going to come up. So this is this division is going to turn to multiplication, but this has to flip. Okay, so we're going to have -3/4 times -2/1.
Why would the 2 be negative?
I always put the negative at the top. It doesn't matter what number it is. Yeah. So here, like the 1 would be negative, but not just because it's the 1, just because it's in the top. That's what I pretty much always think of it as. All right, so let's go straight across. -3 times -2. Positive 6. 4 times 1. 4. Okay, and then are those both divisible by the same number? Yes, where are they both divisible by?
2.
2, yeah. All right, so then let's divide. So you get 3/2, and that's reduced enough. We do not want mixed numbers. Keep it like that. Good? Okay, go ahead and work on those last two. All right, take like 1 more minute. Don't forget, guys, the homework you guys have already in that homework packet thing. So if you want to be doing 1 or 2 problems. Oh, wait, that would be smart. All right, so for the first one, also if you guys know how to do that whole like reducing thing at the beginning where you like diagonal cross reduce or whatever, and you're successful at it, you can do it. I don't want to like teach it for the first time at this point, okay? So here, multiplication, skirt straight across, so you should get -15/50, and then that can be reduced, right? What can I divide those by? 5, good. All right, so you're gonna get -3/10. And then the last one, so the biggest thing that I see, well not the biggest, but one of the biggest on tests is that people aren't looking in between and seeing what operation it's asking for, okay? So you want to just be very careful, always look at the center. So it's going to be multiplication. All right, so we're going to have to do the reciprocal of the second one because it's division. So we'll get -2/5 times -2/3. All right, so then go straight across. 1 negative 2 times negative 2. What's that give me? Yep, 4. 5 times 3. 15. Good. Can that be reduced? Okay, so then you're good. All right, any questions on fractions? Okay. All right, so let's go to guys' lesson check. So put the answers up, or the questions, I mean, and then put the answers up in a couple minutes. All right, ready? Okay. I gotta take a couple minutes to get these 4 done. And I'll put the answers, and then as soon as you're done with these 4, you can just move right on to your homework worksheet, okay?
We don't have to write down the problem, do we?
It's really up to you, because they're your notes if you want to look back at them, but you also have access to the fully filled out ones online, so yeah.
Okay. So we don't have to do that.
I'd like you to do them just because a lot of times I'll walk around and look at your answers and make sure that like you're good before we check it, because that's like my way of checking, make sure you're good too.
Oh.
I just haven't really been because of we don't have our electronic stuff. Otherwise, I'm normally walking around the room constantly. Normally, I won't be sitting here writing. I'll be walking around writing. Do you have your planner? Because I think they're checking. So guys, as soon as you're done with these 4, then move on to your homework. So you should be able to get most of it, if not all of it, done, so that you don't have to do homework tonight. Okay. Just make sure you fill out the first 3, and then because I'll probably check it.
Number 1 on the homework, once you get to the fractions, do we minus them? Subtract them?
On number 1. Technically, because they're like different signs, technically you would with the values. Yeah. So go with like your gut, what you're thinking that you do.
Subtracting?
Yes. The values you would, yeah. Guys, are you guys ready for these answers? Yeah, okay. I'm just going to put them up, and then if you guys have questions, then we can do them, okay? Okay. Any questions on any of those? You're good?